Let's go. Let's go. Let's get fired up. Let's get fired up. Tau Beta Podcast. It's your boy, Jay Johnson. Coming to you Tuesday night, recording, watching the Rangers up 2-1. Bruce Bochy's going to the mound for a pitching change because this bullpen stinks. We'll get into that. We'll get into some MLB talk this podcast. Second ever for Tau Beta. What a fun time that was the other night with Drew Porter, getting into that AFC West, really dissecting that division. What a fun time that was. Drew, being a Chiefs fan, gave us some great insight into not only the Chiefs but that whole division. A lot of interesting stuff going on there, and that was a lot of fun to record. But here we go, second podcast, Tau Beta. You know, we got to start somewhere. It's a slow build, but brick by brick, we're going to get there. This is going to be a fun time. This is going to be a good episode right here. I got a lot of shit to cover, and we're riding solo today. So, strap in, guys. You know, let's get into it. Let's some MLB talk, some college football talk. We're going to go ahead and get going with some MLB off the bat. I mean, we're just coming off All-Star break, and All-Star break is just a good time to assess things. We have our fantasy baseball league, the Man Cave League. Long time running league. I won it last year. You know, it's my league. I run the show. You know, people expect me to win. And right now, your boy's in 5th place, even though I've scored the most points in the league. So, I'm not bitter about it. It just means it's just the competitiveness. And, you know, that's what we've been looking for. So, have that. Have the Rangers, too, man. They've just been playing great ball all year. I mean, couldn't ask for anything better than what they did. What they've done so far this first half. They have about a three-game lead, I believe. 3.5 over Houston. So, people had some high expectations for the boys coming in, but the Nate Eovaldi signing, he just shoved tonight against the Rays, 6 shutout. Chris Young went out and made some great moves for this team in the offseason, getting some pitching in there. That's what us Ranger fans have been dying for this whole time. Since I've been alive, my dad even longer, he's been a bigger fan because he started listening to them when they moved here in like the 70s or 80s, whenever that was. So we've always been asked, can we get some pitching in here? And the Rangers have some pitching this year. It's been a ton of fun doing fantasy, following them every night, been able to go out to the Globe, catch some games, you know. Actually even got to meet Jared Sandler, the radio play-by-play guy, last time out there. Really kind of hit it off with him and chat a little bit in the DMs, so you never know. And so it's just a great time for me to bring a podcast back, you know. We made a run with it with Facts Only Football. I trusted a partner that I shouldn't have trusted. Had to go out in Vegas, had to go and deal with some heartbreak, deal with some shocking disappointment from people I thought I could trust. You know, and there's been other times with other friends, maybe they haven't done it on purpose, but we're done wasting time. We're making moves down in Dallas. Got a nice little comfortable security job. Good chance for promotion. So there's just no better chance here to get the podcast rolling again. It's been a few years, but I do think I'm a lot more confident in myself, just the ability to talk. And I think I'm ready. I think I can do a little solo pod right here. We're going to see how it goes. But I think we got some fun stuff to talk about baseball-wise and college football. We're going to get into the Pac-12 a little bit. We're going to do 4 teams. As I say that, I'm watching Nate Lowe stretch for a ball, bang play with Wander Franco at first base. I think he's safe. Hope he's out though. But yeah, not to get sidetracked. I think we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at a lot of trade deadline stuff too with the trade deadline coming up in 2 weeks. A lot of interesting names that could be out there on the market. And it's really, I think you're going to start seeing some moves being made soon. They usually wait till after the draft's over, which was a few weeks ago. And I think we will still start to see some trades. You know, my Rangers, they they came out and got a Aroldis Chapman about 10 days ago. So they've already made some moves trying to add to that bullpen, because that really is the weakness of my Rangers this year, is that bullpen. So trade deadline's looming, August 1st. Just let's go over some guys I think that could be on the move. And if you're going to talk trades this year in MLB, players that could be dealt, star players, superstar players, and then whatever Shohei Ohtani is, that's where you have to start, because he is Jesus baseball form. I mean, this guy, I don't think there's an athlete in the universe that's better at what he does than what Shohei does. I mean, one of the best pitchers in the league, one of the best hitters in the league, if not the best in both at times. You know, it's just unbelievable. He's been on a tear lately. I lucked out in our fantasy draft and got the first pick. You know, some of the guys thought it was a little fugazi, you know, but that's just how the cookie crumbled, man. You know, when you grind like I do and you win the league and you care about it, the baseball gods look after me. And I got Shohei on my team. And who knows, maybe I'd be willing to trade him too. You know, I don't know when our trade deadline is in our league, but that's something you always got to think about. So anybody in the league's listening to this, send me some trades. You know, I'm not afraid to shake my team up right now. You know, I think we need to stay patient, but I don't think the Angels can stay patient with Shohei, though. I mean, he's a free agent after this year. You know, the Yankees, Dodgers, whoever else, you know they're lining up, because, I mean, this guy's a fucking baseball god. I mean, the Angels, they think they can win because they think they can sign some star players, but they usually sign star players when they're past their prime, a la Albert Pujols, a la Anthony Rendon, a la Josh Hamilton. I mean, they try and just build it overnight. They never have a good farm system. And I just don't think Shohei's going to stay around. It looked like in the standings a few weeks ago they were making a run, but they've really come back down the last few weeks. And if they don't get on a good hot streak these next couple of weeks before the deadline, they've got to think about trying to replenish that farm system, man. I mean, Shohei wants to win. So it doesn't feel like he's gonna put that uniform on anytime soon after this year. It just, the Dodgers or Yankees are gonna shell it out, and it's just, you know, that's easily the most intriguing storyline in the sports world the next couple weeks for me. I mean, you would think he's going to be dealt, and if he does get dealt, I mean, what a game changer that is for whoever can get him. You're going to have to give up the biggest haul of all time, but man. And then speaking of hauls, Juan Soto, the Nationals got a haul for him last year. And you never would have thought, man, maybe the Padres would end up having to trade him just a year later after acquiring him. But they've been very disappointing this year. A lot of people were high on them coming in. A lot of people picked them to win the division over the Dodgers. And, you know, it was a lot of smart people. They have a good team on paper, but that NL West is kind of tough this year with the Dodgers, obviously, but you have the Giants and the D-backs, who are definitely no walks in the parks. I mean, the Giants have been playing really good baseball, so, you know, Juan Soto, I would be surprised if he got dealt, just because the Padres and their GM, AJ Preller, that's not his MO to be conservative and sell off. I do think they're just going to have to let it ride out, maybe, see if they can make some tweaks in the off season. But, man, that's been a disappointing team. And I would say another disappointing team is the New York Mets this year. I mean, wow. When you have the highest payroll in the league and you've just been scuttling along all year, just Frank the Tank, I mean, it's just been driving him crazy. But Frank was right. The team is dysfunctional. He never bought the Kool-Aid. Even when they're good last year, he's negative Nancy. You got to respect Frank the Tank, you know. And all he just cracks me up, that guy. Um, they got the highest payroll in the league. It's just like, man, what are you doing? You guys suck. Are they gonna trade Max Scherzer? Are they gonna trade Max Scherzer to my Rangers? I would love them to trade Max Scherzer to my Rangers, but let's make that happen. I've also heard the Rangers might be interested in Andrew McCutchen. That'd be interesting. I do think as we take a look maybe a little bit at the outfield market, who could be available. I want to start with a guy. Aaron Judge has been sidelined with a toe injury for the Yankees for a while now. And I do think a guy like Brian Reynolds is just a really good player. He would help anybody who gets him. And I think he could really come into New York, play some center field too. They like to play Judge in center a little bit. And I think that would just take a load off of Judge. Stick him in right. Brian Reynolds can play center. You got Harrison Bader too, so he'd probably play left. And Stanton too, he's a little injury prone, so that's a rumor I saw floated about. And I do think that'd be interesting. Another outfield name I want people to focus on is a really kind of a sleeper because of the team he plays on. But Lane Thomas, I like that guy, and I also like his teammate Corey Dickerson. I think both those guys can maybe be on the move. Some more outfielders maybe that could be gone. The Rockies, Randall Grichuk. He's been tearing the cover off the ball lately. He's a right-handed bat, really a good platoon guy against lefties. He really just tears up left-handed pitching, so I think teams are definitely going to be interested in him. Just if nothing else, just another bat off the bench. He's going to start against lefties and maybe be a pinch hitter for you in the postseason. I do think Randall Grichuk is a nice little name for somebody, and I see no reason why the Rockies would hold on to him and some of the other guys on their team. I really don't. I think one of the teams that go ball, go Corey. Corey Seager home run, let's go. Corey Crush. Hell yeah. That's good for one of my preseason bets. I took Corey over 23.5 homers. That's his 14th of the year. I'm feeling pretty good about that. He missed a month of the year with the hamstring injury already. So hell yeah. Rangers go up 5-2 against Tampa in the 7th. But yeah, let's get back into the outfield market. I think a team that's, man, they've probably been the most disappointing team in the MLB this year, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals. And it pains me to say it. I just love the Cardinals, man. They're just so great, And I would never say anything bad about them. It pains me to say this, but man, they are a shitty, fucking miserable, sad sack of shit baseball team this year, and oh my god, it couldn't have happened to a worse bunch of people. Fuck the Cardinals. You got Tyler O'Neill, you got Lars Nootbaar, first team all name, by the way, Lars Nootbaar, just first team all name in MLB. I think both of those outfielders could be available. Look out for Jose Soler of the Marlins. The Marlins are hanging on that last wild card spot at 53-43. I could see them selling high on him. Jorge Soler, he's a guy I picked up in my fantasy team. His power display this year has been impressive. Another guy that's just going to tear up left-handed pitching. He is going to strike out a lot. But if there's a team out there that needs a little punch in their lineup, the Marlins have been good. You wouldn't think they would want to sell off a guy like him, but if they could sell high, then I think they would be open to it, because the Marlins have been a nice little story this year, but are they going to keep this up? Are they going to hold on to that wild card spot the whole year? I just don't know that yet. So I wouldn't be shocked to see the Giants also kind of along those same lines. They've been playing really good ball, and they're in a playoff position, I think, right now. But even still, they got Michael Conforto and Jock Peterson out there. And they're going to be free agents after this year, I believe. I believe both of them will. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants put them out on the market, see what they could get as a return. It's just kind of the way that the Giants run their organization. Farhan Zaidi, he came over from Tampa Bay back in the day, and they do kind of run their team like a little small market, and it's weird because San Francisco is a big market. You can sign big-time players, but they do run their team pretty frugally, and they always find, like, some old pitchers, especially. I feel like they find, like, old pitchers, and they come in and are just phenomenal all of a sudden. So they do have a little bit of Tampa Bay juju going over there in San Francisco. So I wouldn't be shocked if they sold off one of their outfield bats. As far as outfielders, I think that might be it. Just some guys I wanted to throw out there and put on the radar. I think as you look at the pitching market is going to be very important, especially relief pitching. But I do think there's potential for some big names to be dealt, even guys you wouldn't think of right off the bat. Like Corbin Burns, I mean, the Brewers are in first place, but I guess Corbin Burns had some arbitration issues, and they had to go to a hearing. And if you don't know what arbitration is, it's in baseball, before you're eligible to become a free agent, before you have 6 years of service time, you have to go through arbitration to determine what your salary is. And your agent and the team negotiate, and sometimes if you can't find middle ground, it takes a while. They have to take it to a hearing for a third party to get a judgment. And apparently Corbin Burns is not too happy about his arbitration and the way the Brewers handled it. The Brewers notoriously are kind of cheap. They traded Josh Hader last year. They were in the thick of the playoff race, and they traded one of the best closers, if not the best closer, to San Diego. So Corbin Burns, I've heard, free agent coming up soon. I don't know how many years of control he has left. I don't think he's a free agent after this year, but I could be wrong. That would be a wild move, but I could see it happening. One of the best pitchers in the league. You got Shane Bieber on the Guardians. I mean, I think he's going to be the best player. That's for sure going to be dealt. I do think the Guardians are going to trade him free agent after this year. They're another notoriously cheap team. And I read an article today that saying 3 GMs around the league thinks he's a lock to be traded before August 1st deadline is over. I think Lucas Giolito of the White Sox, up and down career, kind of been decent this year from what I know. I don't have him on my fantasy team or anything, and I don't watch a ton of White Sox. But he could be dealt. I think Marcus Stroman. We'll talk a little bit about the Cubs here in a little bit. They're interesting. Erod, Eduardo Rodriguez on the Tigers had a really good year. I think the Tigers, they're not going anywhere. They probably deal him. Lance Lynn also on the White Sox. Just, I don't know. The White Sox are just such a dumpster fire. They just have such a cheap owner, Jerry Reinsdorf. I mean, I think they could pull a stunt or two. Maybe they could trade Dylan Cease. I wouldn't expect them to trade Dylan Cease just because he has an awesome mustache, but also he's a young pitcher, a lot of team control. And I don't think the White Sox are in a position to just give up a young, good starting pitcher because they need to build off of something. And so you can ask White Sox Dave at Barstool all about Jerry Reinsdorf and how frustrating he is to have as a team owner because I guess they don't spend a whole lot and they are kind of cheap. Some more pitchers. I mentioned the Rockies earlier. Herman Marquez. I think he could be dealt. He's been pretty decent this year. And you get him outside of Coors Field. It's tough for pitchers for the Rockies that play half their games at Coors Field. It's just a nightmare to pitch there. So who knows? Maybe he could come in and be like a solid number 3 or 4 for somebody down the stretch and even start a playoff game. One guy I don't think you want to have to start a playoff game is Patrick Corbin on the Nationals. My God, he's terrible. But I do think this is his last year of his contract, so maybe somebody just goes and rolls the dice on him and sees it they can get him back to anywhere close to his old self. He's just been absolutely miserable. He's been awful. He's been painful to watch that guy. Rich Hill of the Pirates, a veteran lefty, I think he could be dealt to. He's an okay guy in fantasy at least. He's at least a guy you think about picking up if you need a pitcher or two. I think another stunner on the starting pitching market. What if the Phillies decide, you know what? Let's trade Aaron Nola. He's a free agent to be. The Phillies, slow start, a little bit of a championship hangover after losing the World Series last year. And I do have a theory on a lot of different sports, football especially, because I think it is such a grind to get to the Super Bowl, baseball too. You really tax your pitching going all the way through October, playing 7 months. I do have a theory, especially when you lose the championship game, you lose the World Series. That next year, it is just so brutal for your team to be focused the way they need to be. It's so hard for them to rebound after just giving all they had and then coming up short. I think you see it a lot. I think you see with the Bengals were good last year after losing, but I think you see that in sports a lot. The team will lose the World Series, they'll lose the Super Bowl, and then you'll just have a year from hell, like the Falcons did when they blew that big one to the Patriots. It happens a lot. And so the Phillies came out. They were just kind of slow start. I went to the game and saw the opening day at the Rangers, and they didn't have Bryce Harper for the first month. Pitching's up and down with Aaron Nola. He's supposed to be the leader of that staff, and he has been kind of disappointing this year. So I would be surprised if they moved him. That really would be a stunner, but you can't count anything out. You know, if somebody's willing to meet their demands prospect wise, the Phillies would definitely consider it. The next 2 weeks are going to be huge for them. Their approach at the deadline. I think you want to look out for Houston, their injuries. There's rumors that, the defending champs, they could be looking for a left-handed bat that can play multiple positions. I don't know who that would be necessarily, but I do see that for the Astros. Maybe get another left-hander in there that can help them out. It's going to be a fun race the rest of the way. It's been fun this whole season, but it's really picking up steam here lately, the Rangers and Astros, the race for the division. Rangers up 5-2 right now in the 8th, so hopefully they can pull this one out. Another position that's going to be super, super valuable in the playoffs, just the way the game's managed. You really need great relief pitching if you're going to win a World Series, because rarely, even a starter that is dealing, rarely do they go past 6 innings in the playoffs. It becomes a game of matchups, and that's why relief pitching is just in such high demand this time of year. And I think the biggest name that could be out there is David Bednar of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Turns out he is a Pittsburgh kid. Maybe the Pirates, they're reluctant to move him with that city connection, but, if somebody just overwhelms them with a prospect package, the Pirates definitely have to consider making that move. They do, because they have a kind of good little young team, but if you can add 3 or 4 studs on top of that, and it's not like your team's good right now and you necessarily need a shutdown reliever, I do think that's something that they need to consider, and that'll be by far the most interesting storyline as far as the relief pitching market goes is David Bednar. Is he going or staying? Because I just don't see anybody else. I would look out for the trio of Ryan Helsley, Giovanni Gallegos, and Jordan Hicks on the Cardinals. The Cardinals, we mentioned it earlier how miserable they've been. Those three guys could be dealt. And Helsley has been their closer all year. He's pretty lights out. And I think the Cardinals, they need to shake their team up, man. It is stale. I don't think that manager's any good that they have. So one of those three, I bet you gets dealt, if not all three. Scott Barlow of the Kansas City Royals, he's a pure rental. Look out for him. He's their closer. He's just up and down this year. Nothing too special, but definitely guys teams are going to have interest in. You got Brent Sutter and Brad Hand, two lefties of the Rockies bullpen. They should both get dealt. And if they don't, the Rockies are just asleep at the wheel. And it wouldn't be shocking because they've been asleep at the wheel for about 15 years now. What a miserable franchise in a great city, in a great ballpark. And you're going to go sign Chris Bryant just randomly, and that's it. You're going to let Nolan Arenado walk away. You're not going to do anything about pitching. You're not going to have any farm system. I mean, what are the Colorado Rockies doing? Somebody needs to kick them in the ass. And maybe trading Brent Sutter and Brad Hand is what they need. Fuck, I don't know. Another reliever I think we all need to be aware of is Alex Lang of the Tigers. Really good stuff, man. He's got electric stuff, and I think he's been closing for them most of the year. I think he'd come in and be somebody's closer potentially. One guy, relief pitcher, I would love the Rangers to go after is Liam Hendricks, another White Sox. There's some other guys out of that Chicago pen that could be moved, but man, I would love the Rangers go out and get that guy. And what a story he's had this year. He had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosed in the offseason, and he's worked himself all the way back. And I think it was about a month or so ago is when he first came back this year. And I don't know how good he's been necessarily, but he's been one of the best closers in the league for a long time. I had him on my team last year. He's a De La Rosa champion. And so I'd love the Rangers to go out and sign that guy. The Oakland A's, if you've been paying attention to baseball at all this year, you know just how miserable they've been and just what a joke and laughingstock they are to MLB. It really is a disgrace, the team that they put out there. So when you're god-awful like that, what do you have to do? Well, you need to trade anybody that's worth a shit. Brent Rooker, Ryan Noda, Ramon Laureano. I wouldn't even say they're really worth a shit, but they're worth something, you know. And the A's, they need to just, I don't know. They're moving to Las Vegas in a couple years. I don't know what to think about that franchise. They're just miserable, and they need to move some pieces and try and get a farm system going. Something. One of the teams that I think is really interesting is the Chicago Cubs at the deadline. They got Marcus Stroman, they got Cody Bellinger, they got some assets they can move, but they've been in a mode where they've been trying to compete. You know, they've traded a lot of their players off from their World Series team, and they've kind of been trying to get the farm system going in the meantime. And they have some nice players. They do. I do like their lineup. It's just the starting pitching outside of Stroman, outside of maybe one or two other guys, and the bullpen's not very good. I do think they're kind of in a spot. They think they're better than they are, and I do think they're better than their record indicates right now. They're 43-50 at the time of recording, 8.5 back of Milwaukee, but that NL Central it's up for grabs, you know. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, because I think they could go either way. Because I do think Jed Hoyer, the GM, I do think he's a smart guy. You know, he was Theo Epstein, the best GM in sports history. He was kind of his right-hand man, so I do think they're kind of better than their record indicates, and they could go on a run here in the second half and make things interesting, because Milwaukee isn't very good. The Reds, though, we got to talk about the Reds. How about those red-hot Reds, huh? They've been a lot of fun. Kind of took the league by storm a few weeks ago. And at the time of this recording, they're 50-44. Not sure if they won tonight. And they're only 2 back of the Brew Crew. Ellie De La Cruz, he might be the most electric player in the game right now. Just 6'7", throws it hard as fuck, hits it hard as fuck, just absolute piss missiles. Just fucking, this whole team, they just hit fucking dick slaps. You know, I'm excited to see what they do at the deadline. Last year, they got their everyday third baseman, Spencer Steer, from the Mariners in the Luis Castillo trade. So, maybe they sell a few parts and also buy at the same time. You know, they're just a really fun young team. I hope they win that division. And I kind of think they do. I'm going to go ahead and say the Reds are going to win that division this year. They're 2 games back. I like that. We touched a little bit on the Tigers, but they are kind of similar to the Cubs, only 5.5 back, 42-51. Just both the Central divisions, American League and National League, are down this year. Just way down, man. It's embarrassing. So that is kind of why I like the expanded playoffs now with the 3 wild card teams, because it lets, you know, in the AL East everybody's above 500. You got the Red Sox in the last place, I think, at like 50-44. So it's just, the Central divisions are just terrible this year. The Tigers, they got Michael Lorenzen, Matthew Boyd, 2 back-ends, starting pitchers I think could be attractive to some ball clubs. You know, they got relievers Jason Foley, Will Vest. I think those guys could be dealt. And the Tigers, I do think, have an emerging farm system. So it'd be interesting they go ahead and add on to that. So we've kind of hit the outfielders, the pitching market. As far as infielders goes, I wouldn't be surprised to see, Carlos Santana of the Pirates get dealt. Heimer Candelario, third baseman on the Nationals. Ahmed Rosario, he's another name. He could be dealt with Bieber for a huge prospect package. If Jerry Reinsdorf allows it, the White Sox really should just cut their losses and move Tim Anderson as well. That team needs a new look, but Jerry Reinsdorf, White Sox Dave, I know I'm preaching to the choir, buddy. That team needs to swallow their pride. They need to move Tim Anderson. They need to move Hendricks. They need to move those relief pitchers. They need to move Dylan Cease. They need to move him, sell high on him if possible. But that team, they need a new identity. The Cardinals, the shitty Cardinals, they need a new identity. Tommy Edman, really nice utility infielder. Teams are definitely going to have some interest in that guy. The Blue Jays, a team to watch. They're really good, but they're overrated in my opinion. They don't have that winning instinct yet. Really young team, and they're a very frustrating team. I do bet a little bit baseball earlier in the year, and man, they're tough. They're a tough watch sometimes, even though they're so talented. But who knows? They keep looking up at Tampa Bay, New York, Baltimore in the standings. Maybe they consider moving Matt Chapman. He's primed to be one of the best free agents on the market. So he's definitely having a nice contract year right now too. So that's another little funny thing about sports. You'll notice guys, the year before their contract runs out, when they're about to be a free agent, they always have great years, like career years, because for whatever reason, they can just give that extra 10% because they know that big money's on the way. So I definitely think that's happened a little bit with Matt Chapman right now. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I got for baseball talk. I think, like I said, the Rangers been a lot of fun this year. Hopefully they can close this out against Tampa tonight, win the first two, and then they have won their first 5 coming out of the break, so that's great. Just hopefully they can keep it going. They got some tough games. I think the Dodgers are coming in this weekend, so that'll be interesting. In baseball, man, it's interesting. I think the Rangers, you'd have to say, they're the biggest surprise in the league just as far as how good they are. I think you got to say the Cardinals, the White Sox have been the most disappointing teams. I think you got to say it's Shohei Ohtani, MVP. NL, I think it's Ronald Acuna is going to win it. But I can't wait to get back in and just get dialed back in baseball. We had the All-Star break last week, and so it's fun having this podcast. We can come on and talk about baseball. And we could talk about other sports too, like college football. One of my favorite sports, just the passion, all that. There's nothing quite like it. I went to OU for a year at college. Went to OU games all the time growing up as a kid. The passion of college football and just the sport of football as a whole. I'm going to show you guys my nerdy side of football and how much I love this game. That's why we're going to start doing division or conference previews. And I'm only going to do about 4 teams at a time every podcast because we're really going to dig in deep. This is really going to help me with my gambling, just digging in with these teams as much as I am. By the time the season rolls around, we're going to be so prepared. We're going to be ready to hit the ground running. So, starting out in the Pac-12, interesting conference this year. It really is. I think it's up for grabs. I think there's 4 teams that can win it. Maybe a 5th. Maybe a 6th. But last year was a fun conference. But this year, I think you got Lincoln Riley in his second year. You got Dan Lanning in his second year at Oregon. Washington's got their guy in the second year. Kyle Whittington at Utah. I mean, Oregon State. We got a lot of interesting stuff. This is going to be a good conference this year. You know, they've kind of found ways not to get in the playoff. They have only made the playoff like 2 or 3 times since it started. I think Oregon and is Oregon the only team that's made it? I believe so. But anyways, this is going to be a good conference this year, and I do think a team comes out of there with 1 loss. I do think they're going to make a playoff. They get a playoff spot this year because I think the Pac-12 is going to hold some respect this year. So yeah, we're going to start Pac-12 tonight. We're going to hit all Power 5s, and I think we're even going to do Sun Belt, American, the MAC. Try and hit as many as the 126 teams out there. We're going to try and cover as many as we can. So tonight, we're going to hit the first 4. And here's just a quick little breakdown of the odds. USC's the favorite at plus 200. Now, for those of you that are new to gambling or don't know what plus 200 means, that means, say you bet 100, that means you're going to win 2-1 if it hits. So bet 100 to win 200. And the implied odds of plus 200 of that hitting is you divide the denominator by the sum of the numerator and denominator. So 2 plus 1 equals 3. And then 1 divided by 3 is 33.3%. So USC at plus 200, the odds makers are telling you a third of the time they're going to win this conference. If you play out this season 1,000 times, they're going to win it 33. I don't know. I'm confusing myself. 330 times out of 1,000. Oregon, second highest favorite at plus 310. Washington, plus 430. Utah, plus 470. Oregon State, plus 900. That's a sleeper right there. Plus 900 Oregon State. I like that. UCLA plus 1,600 as well. They're going to be a fun team to break down. Dante Moore, 5-star freshman quarterback, I think is going to get the reins at quarterback day one. Washington State 30-1. Cal 75-1. Arizona State 85-1. Stanford 100-1. Arizona 100-1. And no love for prime time. Colorado, Deion Sanders coming in, no love, plus 100-1. So that's the odds for you. Let's go ahead. Let's start it off with the favorite to win the conference. USC. And if you know anything about USC, Lincoln Riley, you know I'm going to be a little bit bitter talking about this. He kind of screwed over OU. The past is in the past. We don't want to rehash it. But this is USC's last year in the Pac-12. You know, it's going to be the Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams show. And that combo, I think, is just going to overwhelm a lot of teams they play. But as Lincoln, is he going to continue to let the offense do all the heavy lifting? Alex Grinch has a ton to prove, and I kind of took up for him when he was at OU, but now after seeing how miserable and soft that defense was last year, he's got a lot to prove, and it's not dissimilar to the Mike Stoops situation in 2018 at OU. After OU just got embarrassed defensively by Texas, he finally fired Mike Stoops. He should have fired him after the miserable defensive display against Georgia in the Rose Bowl. So I do think it's a little bit of a similar situation. If they come out and they have some bad performances and say they get upset by somebody they shouldn't lose to, Alex Grinch is going to be, his ass is on the hot seat, you know. But lucky for them, Caleb Williams, man, he's the best quarterback prospect in some time. He really is. I see him as a mixture of Dak Prescott, and Patrick Mahomes. Just the off-balance throws, the athleticism of Dak, the toughness of Dak, the body size of Dak, the arm strength of Mahomes, the ability to escape and just come up with all kinds of creative plays. And I just see a lot of those two guys with him, and he should win the Heisman on paper. He should repeat, but you see a lot over the years. The Heisman favorite does not win a lot. You know, the clear-cut favorite, they rarely ever deliver on that. I think the last preseason favorite to win the award was Marcus Mariota back in 2014. So Riley, he's a great offensive mind, maybe the best on the planet, but there are things with how he manages his roster that frustrates me. He's young. He definitely is afraid to tell players, you know, who don't bring value. He's afraid to show them the door out. And he can't hold leads in games. He gets way too conservative. He loses the run game at times. And I think a lot of it, too, is the strength and conditioning program. Benny Wiley was at OU with them. And I just think they don't build guys to be tough in the trenches later in the games, you know. There's all these reasons. I am sort of glad OU doesn't have him anymore as the coach, even though, man, you got to respect that offense. You know, and of course, last year they ranked first in F+. That's an advanced metric. It's based off Bill Connolly's football power index and mixed in with some other stuff. I won't pretend to know all of it, but yeah, USC last year, they were ranked first in F+ on offense. And Riley and Caleb, they're a cut above the rest of the college game. And why, as much as I hate to say it, they're the big favorite to win this league for a reason, despite that shoddy defense. You know, Riley has imagination and ability to get the absolute best out of his offenses and his quarterbacks. You know, there's never any type of confusion when you're the quarterback for OU or not for OU. When you're the quarterback for Lincoln Riley, he's going to make things very easy for you. He's going to put you in a position to succeed. And his run, he's already produced 3 Heisman winners and a runner-up of Jalen Hurts, and all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and he's probably the best one in the NFL out of all of them so far. And so Lincoln Riley know a lot about his offense. It's very flexible and creative, and he really does have an answer to almost anything the defense is going to throw at him. He was inspired by the great late Mike Leach, and Mike Leach is another great inspiration to me, with this website podcast, find your inner pirate. You got to swing your sword. And so Lincoln Riley definitely finds his inner pirate of Mike Leach, and Hal Mummy too. He was kind of the inventor of the spread offense. I know Lincoln's talked about Hal Mummy and how big of an impact he is, and how Lincoln sees the game, and his passing game is very dialed in. It's just easy quarterback reads. That's how he differentiates himself from the spread offense. Is he has the same spread principles and tells the quarterback where he needs to go with the ball a lot of the times, but he has a very complex and diverse running game too. A lot of pulling and cool counter plays. He gets his running backs in spaces also, and it's very interesting. There really is, in my opinion, Ryan Day's close at Ohio State, but there really is no one in the football world that can run an offense like Lincoln Riley does. He has a tendency to be a little too stubborn, and always felt uncomfortable with big leads with him. I think he does get a little too conservative. And defenses also, it takes them halftime to really get a better idea of how to defend that offense and just get adjusted to it. I mean, so many examples of that over the years, but the biggest one is the Georgia OU Rose Bowl game years ago. I mean, OU came out and just overwhelmed them. And then second half was a different story, So you saw in the Utah games last year, the Cotton Bowl against Tulane. This team, this USC and Lincoln Riley, they have a tendency to blow some leads, and it's fucking hilarious. I love it. Keep pumping that USC Kool-Aid, because, oh man, they had a good year last year. We didn't get to celebrate a lot being an OU fan, so when they did blow some of those leads, it was pretty damn sweet. So we'll see. Lincoln, he can't stray away from that run game, especially in the Pac-12. They should rely on the physicality more than they do. They should have the bigger guys up front. And I do think the strength and conditioning coach, I think he's subpar. And I am sad Lincoln left, but I don't know if Lincoln Riley's ever going to win a national championship. And it's really because of his defense. It's always because of his defense. Alex Grinch, he runs a system that's just kind of gimmicky, and it's all about aggressiveness and forcing turnovers, which they did to an unreal degree last year. It's frustrating to watch. When he was at OU, it was frustrating to watch. They were allergic to turnovers the whole time he was at OU, and then they go to USC last year, and it felt like they were just handed so many turnovers all year. Not even guys making plays, just tip balls and things going their way. It was frustrating to watch as an OU fan last year, and it was fun to see them get their tits lit up by Utah and Tulane, because Alex Grinch, he's so gimmicky. He could work at a smaller school, but not a USC, not an OU. He really is destined to be at a smaller school, in my opinion. So I'm frustrated with that, because the defense it cost the Sooners a lot of legit chances to win a national championship, because they've had some unbelievable offenses over the years. It's just a lot of it was luck, and we just see how baby soft that team is in USC. So I really am excited about the Brent Venables era at OU, and even though last year was very bad, it was a tough, not a good look for us. I do think, man, that that USC team. This is the baby soft team. And so, yeah, USC winning this conference, that's the easy bet. But if their defense isn't miserable, but I haven't seen a Lincoln Riley defense not be miserable. And I don't think Alex Grinch, I think he's had enough time. I don't think he's going to all of a sudden reinvent the wheel, you know. I think Lincoln has an ego, too, because how great of an offensive mind he is. I think he just simply doesn't think there's a lot of issues to address with his defense, because I think he thinks his offense can overcome it. So keep thinking like that, bro. The Big Ten's only going to be easier next year. That's all I got on USC. We're going to move into Oregon here now. Quack, quack, go Ducks. Interesting team, Oregon. You never know what fucking uniforms they're going to show up in on Saturdays. It's always going to be something just... It's going to take your eyes to get adjusted a little bit. But they're an interesting team, man. They got a Dan Lanning in charge. He came over from Georgia as their defensive coordinator. And he's a great recruiter. And I do think their offense is very talented. They're bringing back a lot of the same skill players from last year. They were ranked pretty highly in a lot of the advanced metrics on offense. Heck, they went into the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State in 2021. It's not that long ago. This is a team that I think can really do some things. There's some question marks on the offensive line. A lot of guys they got to replace. There's a new coordinator, too, on the offense. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fare on that side of the ball. But Bo Nix, he still hasn't graduated. He's still there. I thought, for the SEC, he got a leg injury. He was going to win the Heisman. I thought last year he was playing damn good ball. He started out in the SEC at Auburn, but it feels like that dude has been in college football for the last 7 years, and what a career he's had. Oregon looked primed maybe to get a playoff spot last year, and he was really in the thick of the Heisman conversation. I think I even put a future on him at one point. So I do think this Oregon offense, they can be very good next year. They got Dan Lanning, like I said, and they're going to hope he can come over and get that defense rolling. And I think him being a recruiter is going to be good because Oregon is one of those teams of NIL. We all know the schools that are willing to pay guys a lot of money, and Oregon's definitely on that list. And Dan Lanning, he's a guy OU fans were kind of high on when OU was going through their coaching search. Last year, it was between Venables and Dan Lanning from a lot of the rumors. So OU fans, they were high on Lanning, and we were all kind of talking ourselves into them. Big recruiter, like I said. And I think he can get this defense up to speed. They were 51st in F+ on defense last year. And, I think it is important when you look at football and for gambling too. These advanced metrics, they're valuable to me because it's kind of hard to explain, but there's just so many variables in a sporting event. And you want to take the luck out of it as much as you can, and you want to see what's real, what are these teams' real strengths and weaknesses, and that's how you can be a good evaluator. It helps me with this podcast. It helps me talk about sports in a very intellectual way, and it helps me with my gambling too. So they were 51st in F+ on defense, but I think Lanning can bring in some studs. I think he did in the portal and in the freshman class. And that pass rush, it was ineffective. A lot of those bodies transferred out. And I like Oregon this year. They're a team I want to bet on this year, at least at the start of the year. So as long as they don't come out and wear just hideous uniforms all the time, I do like them this year quite a bit. All right, one sec, get a sip of water. We'll get into the Washington Huskies. All right. So, Washington just kicked Texas's ass in the Alamo Bowl last year, and I loved that. And I remember watching that, I was like, man, they're definitely a team on a bye this year. They got Michael Penix at quarterback. He's back, and you just love seeing a lefty out there slinging it around. Their coach, DeBoer, I think that's how you say it. He's very impressive. I mean, he took them from a really stale, mediocre offense, and they were ranked 8th in F+ on offense last year. So that turnaround was impressive. They got some stud receivers. McMillan, he's definitely a guy. You got to remember McMillan and Odunze, who each went for 1,000 yards last year. They're coming back. They did lose a 5-star legacy quarterback, Sam Heward. And I guess that's just the vibe now, is these guys, they just get in the portal as soon as they can if they don't start day one. And so I don't even know where he's at, but they do have some depth at quarterback too. I don't think they'll miss him that much. And hopefully Penix can stay upright because he's a lot of fun. Being a lefty, I am kind of fond of his game. Their offense is just explosive as fuck, man. They air it the fuck out. And I love that. They averaged over 8.0 yards per attempt, which is an insane number. That's basically, how many... So you're going to have 40 passing attempts in a game. Well, if you're having 8 yards per pass attempt, how many yards is that? 320 yards? I mean, that's a great day at the office for any quarterback. So they did struggle getting some touchdowns in the red zone, but I'm sure they're going to focus on that in fall camp and make that a big emphasis. And so offensively, man, Washington, there's a lot to like there. Defensively, man, maybe this good offense did come at the cost of the defense taking a big step back. Under Chris Peterson, their defense was always locked in. They were ranked 70th in F+, which just isn't going to cut it. Get them to San Francisco to play in the conference championship game. That's where they want to be. If they want to do that, they have to be better than 70th in F+ on defense. Their defensive scheme is very rigid, and they match personnel to the offense. So that is something that bothers me with some defensive coordinators. I really think that would be the best job I'd be at in football coaching if I were to get into it. I'd want to be a defensive coordinator because Bill Belichick, some of the great ones, I love that they just have always come up with unique game plans for offenses. I don't like coaches that just run their system no matter what. I like guys that like to tailor their system week by week, and I think you do that. You have to have smart players for sure. And so maybe it is one of those things in college. Just a lot of these guys don't think they have enough time to put in that work and get guys to know all these different types of game plans. But that's something that I'm sure that frustrates the Washington fans too. So they got trouble. Their defense has trouble stopping the run in the trenches, and short yardage also is something I was reading about. So it does make sense because of the spread offenses, the popularity. A lot of these defenses now do focus on stop and pass first, and they do need some big boys up front to help with that. I think that's something they've been lacking, some good defensive tackles. But, honestly, outside of Georgia, Alabama, maybe Ohio State or a couple others, man, everybody needs better defensive tackles, but Washington in particular. This is a team I'm going to be rooting for. I just don't know if they're quite ready yet to win a tough conference like the Pac-12 is going to be this year. But another great uniform team. I love their gold helmets, man. That purple and gold, I'm very fond of that. Being where I grew up, our colors were purple and gold. So Washington, I'll be rooting for them for sure. Utah, might be my favorite program in the Pac-12, man. I love these guys. They creamed USC in the Pac-12 title game, and they also gave USC their first loss of the year last year. Yeah, it was really entertaining and weird game at Rice-Eccles Stadium under the lights, 43-42. And one of the awesome things, Barstool, Big Cat always talks about these games at Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium at night. The field always looks smoky. Like, for whatever reason, it looks like there's just been, like, fireworks shot off and there's smoke in there. And so that was one of the all-time games last year, 43-42, and Utah beat them in the regular season. Kyle Whittingham, their coach, definitely a top 5 coach in the league, in my opinion. And he's just no doubt. His coaching is so impactful with football. The schemes, the fact you get 6 days to prepare for an opponent. There's just so many things, you know. Every player has to read pre and post snap, and so I think Kyle Whittingham, his teams always know their identity. They're always confident, and they don't beat themselves, and so that's why I am a fan of Utah football and the brand of football they play. Offensively this year, they're bringing back all their production. Same offensive coordinator has been there for 5 years. Feels like Cam Rising's been there just as long. So that continuity, that familiarity, that's going to be huge for this team this year. I think Rising and his staff, they're just so confident and they know their shit. That gives them a big advantage because there's a lot of teams out there that don't know their shit and they're just trying to piece it together and trying to fake it till they make it. And that's not Utah football. So they're a very fun team to watch. You know, they had some trouble with slow starts to games last year. So something that's going to be emphasized this offseason. One nugget on the backup quarterback. I guess he's thrown 2 touchdown passes in the last 2 years at the Rose Bowl. Just came in for garbage time. So he's unproven, and Rising does take some punishment with his play style. They love to get him involved in the quarterback run game, so hopefully it doesn't come to it, but the backup quarterback is unproven, but he is a Rose Bowl legend. Despite Tavion Thomas, he's not going to be on the team. Their backfield should be pretty good. I guess Thomas is away with some criminal charges, but I was reading earlier that they think the running back situation is going to be pretty good, and they think they got some experience and talent back there. Finally wrapping up here with Utah, the defense, it was pretty average last year, the eye test and the metrics. They did put together some good performances late in the year against USC and Oregon in particular. Utah always just has some big Hawaiian boys. Utah always has some units up front on the D-line. Their D-line came along nicely towards the end of the year, and I think that should be a strength of their team this year on the defensive side of the ball. The passing defense wasn't terrible, but they gave up a shit ton of big plays. It looks like they started to blitz a lot more in the back half of the year, and they kind of found their identity down the stretch. The run defense is a bit Jekyll and Hyde. It is vulnerable, especially if they play in games trailing. So if teams can take the air out of the ball against them and keep their offense on the sideline, that's going to be something that they're going to have to be careful about this year, I think. But overall, I like Utah for their experience and their coach. They're not going to beat themselves, and they're going to win 8 to 9 wins this year and every year, really. And I guess the question is there more there for Utah? You know, you have to think they can be the top dog in this league after USC and UCLA leave for the Big Ten next year. And, UCLA, that's where we're going to pick up next on Friday's episode. So we're gonna cut it off right there, guys. But I think that was a lot of fun. Just getting able to talk some college football, baseball, trade deadline, man cave league, a lot of fun stuff on the horizon. I think what we're gonna be doing is do this podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday release. The Sunday ones with Porter. That might be Twitter Spaces, and then I'll just upload the audio. These two are going to be just normal podcasts. I'm hoping down the road, maybe when I get my own place, I can get a camera so I can do like the podcast videos. I think I'd be comfortable doing that. Even in these solo podcasts, it was kind of overwhelming to do it on my own, but it was fun and I feel pretty comfortable. I did write a lot of notes down to help out. But it's just going to take practice and repetition, and I think I definitely can bring a cool perspective on life and sports in particular. And so, guys, go please tell a friend. I'm going to get business cards soon for social media. Go follow me on Twitter, jbirdie23, TikTok, jbirdie37, Instagram, jijohnson23, and YouTube is jbirdie23. So, good stuff, guys. Go subscribe. Go give me a like. I'm going to put this out on YouTube as well. And in the meantime, we got some fun TikToks, doing some fun breakout videos. I'm trying to get more comfortable knowing how to make those TikToks, and I think I'm pretty close to being able to do them. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff, guys. Tau Beta. Peace out.